Good evening, everyone. Good evening. It's good to see a full house tonight. At this time, I'd like to recognize Mr. Mark Holden. Thank you, Mr. Holden. At this time, I'll call the meeting to order. It is August the 14th, 2023. This is the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees at 7 p.m. If you would, at this time, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on tonight's agenda is the chairman's report, and the first item of that is the consent agenda, which consists of the approval of tonight's agenda, approval of minutes from June the 12th, 2023, approval of invoices, and approval of overnight field trips. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Holden, second by Mr. Sloan. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda for the chairman's report is a recognition of service. And if you'll give me just a second, we'll switch. We'll probably need to turn the podium around. Just give me just a second.
I think it's on.
All right, this is one. I've been delinquent in doing this, and it's my fault. Got busy doing other things at the end of the school year in June. I meant to do this in June, but Miss Wanda McDowell, would you please come up? So for those of you that don't know, Miss McDowell is, she's one of our inaugural members of the audit committee, which was formed a few years ago. She agreed to come on in a time that, you know, it'd have been easy to say, no, I'd rather not get involved, but she chose to serve. And she was one of two community members. The way the audit committee is made up, you have two community members, one from Inman, one from Landrum, and a board member that serves on that committee. And they serve in an advisory role to the full board, but they make sure that everything that should be done in the audit is being done. So it takes a good bit of expertise to serve in that role. So we were all happy when Ms. McDowell agreed to do that. I was even more happy that she agreed to serve one more year. We staggered the committee roles there was one community member that served 2 years and one that served 3 years. Well, Ms. McDowell was initially the 2-year member, and our committee member from Landrum resigned early, so that left us in a bit of a conundrum. And I was coming on as chairman, and I was going to have to find potentially another committee member. So I very cautiously and with great respect asked Miss McDowell if she would do another year, and without hesitation she said sure. So immediately I was indebted to her, so that was a huge decision. But during her time, we've had clean audits, we've had a very smooth transition into one of the really the best financial positions that the district's been in a long time. And I can say from having sat on the board while she's on the audit committee, it gave me a lot of comfort to know that she was there serving in a role that is very necessary. And a lot of times a board member, we don't have the financial background that's needed to truly understand everything that goes into an audit. So having somebody like Ms. McDowell makes it that much easier. So Ms. McDowell, we're presenting you tonight with a certificate, and thank you for your service and dedication.
No. No need for this, my pleasure. No need at all. Hey, always my pleasure, no need for this, but thank you.
Turn that back around. The next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report, Dr. Mark Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Cawthorn. Just want to report we had a great first day of school. It was wonderful. I was able to hit all 11 schools today. If I had a quarter for every smiling face that I saw, we would never have to worry about money again. We would just build school after school because there were so many joyful and happy children and happy teachers. So coming off of summer, if you can see smiles, that's a pretty good thing. So it was a great day in District 1. Only thing, we had a little traffic at Chapman, but we're working on it. We're working on it. We'll have that. Mr. Davis is here, gave me the thumbs up. We're good. Got a plan communicated out for that. But just real grateful to all of our staff for all the work that has gone into making this school year start so well. Before I turn over to Mr. Loso, we were going to talk in my superintendent report. Well, normally, you know, I'm celebrating children or celebrating our staff. Well, it's been the summer, so I'm going to take a couple of minutes here, a privilege, to talk about a couple of things that I want us to focus on and celebrate early on. First, going to be discipline and how we're moving forward this year, loving on our kids and then using and holding our students accountable. But before I turn over to Mr. Loso, it gets boring up here in the summer times when it's just a long summer, okay? I had a great summer, but there were some days where, you know, I had worked a good full day, and I just like to work. So if there's not something on my plate, I have to be doing something. So I started looking at the filing cabinets, and I shared this with all of our teachers and staff last week. This is a copy of 1906 and 1907 Inman School District Board Minutes. You're looking at a historical record. For real, I don't know what the writing is because that writing looks like I wrote it. I do not have good penmanship, but there's a lot of cursive in there, and so I tried to make out some things. Well, I came across a typed note, okay? And you folks can't see it from back there, but there's two typed notes in here. One is from the school board, and the date is June 7th, 1907. And I hear that was just a few days before Billy was born, but you know. But anyway, this was 116 years ago. It's amazing. And this was the first folder that I pulled. It was really cool. And I am an old history teacher. Y'all might not know that, but I did teach. I taught history for 5 years, so this is fascinating. So in 1907, the school board of Inman was looking up for a principal of Inman Graded School. And I'm going to read you the letter they wrote to Mr. A.C. Daniel Jr. That's who they selected to be principal. Dear sir, at a trustee meeting held this morning, it was agreed to elect you principal. Now, we're not going to grade the school board on their spelling because they did misspell principal. So we'll cut them some slack on that. Of Inman Graded School for the school year 1907 to 1908 at the salary of $675. $675. Now, Mr. Davis is a high school principal now. He's agreed to work for that this year. So thank you, Mr. Davis, working for $675. Well, they asked for a response. And Mr. Daniel worked at Wofford College. And you can't see this from when you're sitting, but there's Wofford College letterhead on his typed response. It's fascinating. Gentlemen, Board of Trustees, gentlemen, I appreciate your electing me principal. He spelled principal correctly. Give him credit. Of your school. And accept with intention of giving you the best service that I'm capable of. Here's the part I brought out to our teachers last week, and here's the part I want to bring out to you. This was 116 years ago, and this is what he asked the school board. I expect you to back me up. And we think there's always new stuff under the sun, right? And we think that discipline is an issue just in our time today. Well, here 116 years ago, the principal of Inman Graded School wanted to know, hey, I'm coming to work for y'all, but are you going to back me up? And you know what our teachers want to know today in our district? They want to know from our principals and from me as a superintendent and you as a school board, are you going to back me up? But I just want to say wholeheartedly, we're going to love our kids and we're going to support our teachers. And now, Mr. Losa, I want you to come up here and present to them our plan for this school year. Mr. Josh Losa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Smith. I appreciate the time and opportunity to brief you on some of the updates that we have on our behavior support for the school year. First of all, whenever we talk about discipline and behavior, there's kind of a negative connotation to that, but I want you to know that we have great kids being taught by great teachers, being supported and led by great administrators, and surrounded by a great community. Because anybody that knows District 1 wants to be in District 1. And I can tell you, I field phone calls on a daily basis wanting to come to District 1 because of the limited discipline and behavior issues that we have. But in order for us to stay great, we've got to continue to improve. And so we do find issues in what we're doing, and we find opportunities to improve. So one of the things that led us to go down this path is when Dr. Smith came on board, he gave the teachers a survey, and on that survey, there was an overwhelming response that they would like a little bit of support in terms of discipline. And so the rationale for us continuing to go through and improve our behavior support within our district is just feedback from people on the front lines. And so those people on the front lines are telling us that there is an opportunity where they are having a disruption in their instruction. And so that disruption to instruction becomes an issue for us that we need to solve on all bases. And so over the last school year, we had 2,011 incidents. And those incidents range from anywhere from excessive tardies to criminal conduct and anywhere in between. But that's a lot of incidents. But when you take into account the number of students that we have, we're actually sitting pretty good compared to other districts. Of those incidents, there were 846 students that created those 2,011 incidents. And of those 846, 392 students had 2 or more incidents. And those are things that we can see that's a preventative thing that we can continue to work on so that those students are having one incident and we're taking restorative practices to make sure that they're not having multiple incidences. And so some of the challenges that we've faced over the course of the past few years is the expectations and the consequences that existed were good, but they could use improvement. The structure and support that we had in place was okay, but it could use some improvement. And the personnel that we had was not enough, but we made some improvements. And so with the expectations and consequences, we've revamped the student-parent handbooks so that there are very clear expectations and there are very clear consequences to incidents that occur. We are consistent among all schools. There are some school-based issues that are addressed in school-based handbooks, but our handbooks encompass all 10 of our schools, including Swofford as well. We are taking preventative measures in terms of principals are training teachers in classroom management. Teachers are talking to students and telling them and things that would cause incidents. And we're consistently talking in the same verbiage to all students at all times of these things cause incidents, and we want to prevent those moving forward. And we do have a student and parent acknowledgement so that everybody has seen this information by the first day of school. In terms of consequences, we have redefined procedures, meaning that we've trained teachers on things that create incidents and things that are classroom management-based things, but we do want to support teachers in all of those aspects. We do have new behavior matrices at all levels, and we have adequate and appropriate consequences for any incidents that occur. We want to make sure that the consequences are punitive in some nature, but also restorative in another nature. And then we have restorative instruction within those consequences so that we can start to prevent additional occurrences of incidents moving forward. The structure and support, we did see some issues with the structure. Unfortunately, the personnel would kind of cause the casualty to our structure because we didn't have the personnel to create the structure that we needed. Now, this structure is, in some sense, an in-school suspension, but it's an in-school suspension with a very deep restorative piece to it. And so we are removing students from their classroom, but we are providing them with punitive, meaning that they're not going to enjoy it, but they are going to receive some type of service from our behavior support and our guidance counselors and the behavior support team that we have in place in the district. We do have a reflection and reentry, meaning they're going to talk about what they did more than once, and they're going to show that they understand what it means to re-enter that classroom and become a productive member of that classroom. And then we do have a dedicated ISS classroom or space, so that this does take place in a school in a structured environment. And then the support, all of our teachers are on board with this, so they are ready to support and collaborate with instructional materials. We're building a bank of grade level instructional materials as well as the behavior and emotional materials that we will provide our behavior support. We do have district and administrative support. We're all on board in making this a success, and we have mental health support to come on board if that's a piece that those students need. And lastly, our personnel. We did add 6 behavior support staff, which are shared or at individual schools. We are implementing the in-school suspension, but again, it's not just sit and write and copy out of a dictionary. It's very methodical in what we do and what we provide them so that they're getting what they need to re-enter. And then we're doing targeted training on trauma, emotional, and behavioral support to these behavior support staff so that they are equipped to deal with the children with the issues that they come to them with. And so within this system, behavioral support will definitely have in-school suspension. And so they'll be in that part of the time. But when they don't have students in school suspension, they will be traveling, talking, having conversations, eating lunch, checking on them after school, checking on them when they come in. So they're a face that they can attach and form a relationship with so that we can continue to support them throughout the school day and the school year. And so the target audience, this affects everyone. If you've never been inside of a school, one discipline disruption affects everything. And so to improve instruction environment and to reduce the distraction in all classrooms, we also want to build relationships and improve behavior of the students with incidents. So we're targeting the students that are not creating incidents by removing the distraction, and we're targeting the students with the incidents by adding restorative practices. And then we're going to reduce the classroom management time that teachers have to spend so that they can spend time teaching. And we're going to increase the administrator time for teacher and student support instead of discipline. And so we have a well-rounded group of people, a well-rounded set of instructions, and we're really prepared to make this a success so that we can reduce the number of discipline in an already well-disciplined school district. Thank you.
Josh, thank you. What I want to reiterate is how great our kids are, and we're just tightening up. That's what we're doing. That's what our teachers ask us to do in the survey. We have wonderful kids, but we're just tightening up in all areas. And, you know, we want them to know how much we love them, but part of being a parent, as you well know, is giving consequences and holding people accountable, but also giving that support. Support is a key factor. Because I know when I was growing up old school, I did what my dad said because I was just scared of him, and I did it, and I respected him. And what I've tried to build off his good parenting was I've tried to explain things and, you know, hopefully to get that misbehavior from keep repeating. That's why we're doing this with our behavior support. And I want to thank you, board, for adding that this year because our teachers are very grateful for the addition of the 6 behavior support staff because they just feel the support of the board in helping us tighten up in this discipline area. But thank you, Mr. Loso. I appreciate it. Also, part of the superintendent report, I'd like to give an update on Kelly Services. That's the contracted organization we went to help with our sub problem. That was another issue from our surveys. Our teachers said they're tired of covering classes. It's been 3 years since COVID, and they've been covering classes for no additional compensation, and they really just want their planning period back like any good teacher does. But I want to give an update on that because we're off to a great start with Kelly Services. So last year, we had about 60 subs on the list that we could call. Already this year, at the beginning of the year, we have 67 active subs on Kelly Services payroll right now, with 10 more in the hiring process. So by next week, we should be up to 77 full-time or sub people that are willing to sub in our schools. But this was what I was most pleased with. I went to every one of our registration days, and Kelly Services had a rep at every school, and they were at a table recruiting parents to sub. That was a great idea. We've never thought of that because honestly, we're just trying to get through registration. We didn't have the staff to send to recruit. Do you know we had 68 parents sign up to get more information to join Kelly Services. And that doesn't mean they're all going to join, but what if we get half? And so that would get our numbers up to around 100. And again, Kelly Services has promised me about a 90% fill rate. Last year, our fill rate was 62%. There'll be teachers dancing in the school. You'll have to videotape it. It'll go viral on YouTube or TikTok or whatever kids are watching now, with their teachers being happy with not having to cover classes. So that's a big win, and it's another thank you from the teachers and the staff that I want to say thank you, the school board, for investing in our teachers with the discipline and with helping them with our substitute teaching. Thank you all so much, Mr. Chairman. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. The next item, moving on down the agenda, is our personnel report by Dr. Trish Beeson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board members, for the personnel report for July 2023, we do not have any retirements or resignations to consider.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that.
I would like to recommend that the board approve employments that are listed on your personnel report for the 23-24 school year.
Okay, we have the recommendation to approve the new hires for the 2023-24 school year. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the new hires for the year 23 and 24 school year.
Okay, motion by Ms. Fowler,
Second.
second by Mr. Rollins. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Beeson. We'll give Mr. Holden time to come back in. All right. The next item on the agenda is our policy report. Ms. Jada Tesnier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Board of Trustees, Dr. Smith. It is my pleasure to recommend for second reading the first half of Section B. And Mr. Chairman, if you want to, we can take these one by one, or however you would see fit.
Yeah, that
Okay.
one by one's fine.
All right, so we have BA, which is Board Operational Goals. The only thing in question from that one that we discussed last time was whether or not it was the board's role to identify educational technology needs into programs, or was it the administration? And at that time, we had kind of talked about striking that. So we, on behalf of administration, did strike that. That was the only other change to that policy from our last meeting. Moving on, we did strike Board AA, which is the board self-evaluation after much discussion. And basically, I believe the board come to a consensus that that should be a practice and not necessarily a policy. So as you will see, that has been struck through. We'll go to BB, the board legal status. You will see there where there was discussion whether it's, within Spartanburg County versus Spartanburg School District 1, and the board and administration agreed that it should be within the boundaries of our school district attendance lines. So that is the only change there.
Ms. Tesnier,
Yes, ma'am.
on that policy,
Yes, ma'am.
did we leave the designated areas, because we don't have like 7, like other districts do, like District 5 has 5-1.
Mm-hmm.
Do we want to take out that who reside in designated areas within the District 1, or just who reside within District 1?
Great question, and the only reason, and certainly I'm open to board discussion on this, the only reason I left the part that said the designated area is because we've got that little bit of Greenville County. And so someone could think that that would be a designated area of Spartanburg School District 1.
Gotcha. That makes
But
sense.
certainly, I'm open to,
Can somebody that lives in that little slice of Greenville County run for school board?
they can.
Oh, really?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, awesome.
To my knowledge, all right. With no other discussion on that, we will continue to move on. BBA, board powers and duties. We did add, the couple of remarks about reviewing the district finances, and then also we placed in there the visit to schools will be once a year as recommended and prescribed by law. Moving on to BBAR. This is one that the board asked for administration to go back and kind of reword. Certainly, we took another shot at it. You can see the information provided there.
I would just offer up for the board's consideration, in the second paragraph where it said the board member may seek the board's approval to request information that might lead to significant expenses or considerable search time from district staff, that sentence be struck. Because there may be sometimes in terms of especially the budget where it might take considerable time, but it's still important. And I think anytime a board member feels that they're in need of information for especially their fiduciary responsibilities, that there shouldn't be any language that kind of gives that up, because that's our responsibility according to law. And I'm open to what other people think about that.
Thank you. In a situation like that, any information gained would be for the full board, I would think. But as I mentioned before, I still believe there could be other circumstances when board members, if we all had our own ideas, or if we all had a certain niche or interest that we could really, and it didn't pertain to the other board members, that we could really tie up a lot of time for the staff, superintendent, by hitting them, pretty much, just depending on if we hit them at the same time, or just keeping them busy when, like I said, if it's only one board member interested, how deep a dive should they be expected to perform? But that's just my opinion. And like I said, things could change. I know right now, Dr. Smith, you're energized and ready to go, and just waiting for us to ask something of you, but
I could get old quick. That's
That,
right,
uh,
Mark. It can happen. I'm
but,
fighting age, but I'm trying.
given some circumstances, it could interfere.
True. I would just, because I had some experience with this in terms of the budget, whereas other people were more experienced on the board, new people may need more information that you guys already felt comfortable with, but I needed additional information, and I've not been denied that information, but I just think that could be something that this would maybe prohibit when someone has a legitimate request. I just think we're putting in policy something that could put a roadblock to a board member in the future. If a board member abuses it, then you could censure that board member, or, cause an action of the board to perhaps keep that board member from getting the information. But I just think it's a unforced error to say that we would, may seek the approval of the entire board.
It was a majority of the board, isn't it? The approval of the majority of the board, so.
It just says they seek the board's approval to request information.
I
And
think
the
a key
reason-
word there is may. That's not a must. May is, it might be necessary. I think that leaves enough wiggle room to take care of possibly that concern. It's not a requirement, but depending on the request, it might be necessary.
Again, I just see that as a prohibitive sentence.
Excuse me.
Okay, got it.
Thank you. That, as you mentioned, I think it would take some abuse to even call this into question. I don't think it would prevent the board members from, but like you say, if it became excessive or abusive, then without it, other than censoring the board member, I don't think we could withhold from, I don't think there would be a remedy, for the board without it.
Again, I know in the past that there have been some things that was very pertinent information that was not given, maybe let me just be clear, not with the current situation, but especially with budget information that was difficult in coming. And so I wouldn't want to put a roadblock in front of a future board member.
Ms. Tesnier, I notice under, a couple paragraphs down, under requesting the addition of items
Yes, sir.
to the board meeting agendas, there's an option in there. The sentence basically reads, if blank number, or that's the options. If board members request the addition of an item, it will be added to the agenda. So I think that is a decision that we need to, as a full board, make of, is that a singular member, or is that 2, 3, or a majority that requires the addition of a agenda item in preparation of the meeting? Anybody have any preferences or opinion on that?
In the print here, it has 3 or more, a majority of, as suggestions, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think for those that have served as chair, is there a issue with that being a singular request? Or is there a reason to have that requirement be more than one person?
I think with a singular request, you run into the inability to be prepared to deal with an agenda item added by one person. So if there was a majority that had, the need to amend the agenda, I think you would be more apt to be prepared to deal with the item at hand. I think a singular action could take it down a rat hole that we, may not need to go into without proper preparation for staff and for board being advised.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, this is very broad. language. It doesn't say when the board member will notify the chair. We do our best to post the agenda on Thursday or Friday, and whenever an agenda item is posted after that, it lends itself to, unfortunately, not having the community in the know of what the agenda item may be.
Yeah, I think that's a wise suggestion, Ms. Tesnier, is we need to strengthen some of that verbiage to require some kind of time frame, so as not to inadvertently change an agenda after our required approval window.
Correct.
Yep.
Ms. Tesnier, is our current policy, that anybody could just request it, a one-person community administration board?
Let me look. Unfortunately, Ms. Baker, it doesn't state, so it would fall back on Robert's rules. So I'm hearing we need to maybe not do a second reading on board member authority and go back to the table and look at changing.
Yeah, I think there's enough of a significant change or edit on that we'll have another reading on it before we have a final approval of it.
I'm going to highlight that part. Going back up to the top, as someone pointed out, it does say the board member may seek the board's approval, but would love conversations with board members about their thoughts on that so we can proceed. And
If I'm reading it correctly, it says if the individual board member seeks additional information, the superintendent will make all efforts to fulfill the request in a timely manner. So that, the information is going to the board member.
yes, sir.
If they need additional information, and I guess the administration is resisting, then the board member can come to the full board and get requests to get more information. So that's an additional out. So I think there's plenty of opportunities to get the information you need if it's not overburdensome and the board could determine so. So I think it's fine.
All right, so we'll go back to the drawing board on the requesting of additional items to the board meeting agenda. All right, our next one is BBB. There was no change on that one from the last meeting. BBA, there was no changes on that. BBC, no changes. BBD, there were no changes. There was significant changes to BBE. So I'd like to direct your attention to BBE, unexpired term fulfillment vacancies. Couple points there. We did follow Spartanburg 5's policy after Ms. Baker and I spoke in length after an attorney general's opinion and whatnot. We did follow the recommendations from our attorneys in fulfilling the last unfulfilled seat. So we added that in there. We've also added all the statutes. And then I understand Ms. Ross's point about if in the event of the board member passing, that the family would like to speak just on behalf of the family to the board So I added that verbiage in there as well. Certainly can take that out, whatever the board's will is for this. All right, with no discussion on that, Mr. Chairman, I am recommending on behalf of administration the second reading for BA, BB, BBA, BBB, BBA, BBC, BBD, and BBE. And I'll go back to the drawing board on our BBAR.
Thank you, Ms. Tessnier. Okay, board, we've heard the recommendation to approve the second reading of the previously mentioned sections in B, section B. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve all of the aforementioned, minus the BBAR. Go back to the drawing board for that one.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, before we leave the policy section, I just wanted to mention, I know the board has received several emails from the community regarding us updating IFBD in a more timely manner than maybe 12 to 18 months from now. And I just want to reiterate that I think that would be a good idea if we brought that forward instead of leaving it in the regular rotation.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Baker. Yep, we always appreciate community input and involvement. It's good to see a room full of people. That means they're involved and engaged, so we will take that into consideration as we move forward working on this matter.
Thank you,
Ms.
Mr.
Tessnier,
Chairman.
thank you. Next item on the agenda is our finance report. Ms. Lacey Brady.
Good evening. Okay, at this time, I want to turn your attention back to the Teacher Equalization Fund. We started talking about this quite some time ago, and this is the local endeavor of all the Spartanburg County School Districts trying to target the teacher salary schedule. And while the state focuses on the starting salary pay for teachers, locally we're trying to look at teacher retention. And so we're trying to target the upper steps of our teacher salary scale. The planned use of these funds was each Spartanburg County School District would contribute the equivalent of 2 meals in FY 22-23, and then 1 meal each year after. And then beginning in FY 24, we would increase steps 18 and 19 to 2% on the teacher salary scale, and then steps 20 through 34 will remain at 1%. There's a note on here in FY 22-23, our scale went to 31 years, and then 23-24, we increased our scale to 34 years. So we got our payment in, since we didn't increase millage or we didn't assign any millage to this for FY 22-23. We are required to make a payment to Spartanburg County Treasurer, and for 2 meals, that's the equivalent of $134,000. This is based on actual tax collections for FY 22-23. So next year, when we get billed for 23-24, it will be based on actual tax collections that year as well, and then after. So estimated, if we use that same figure, for 23-24, we'll owe a little over 200,000, and then by 24-25, you're getting over, 270,000 plus. So y'all all know my budget rule of thumb is I always try to attach reoccurring revenue to reoccurring expenditures, and this teacher equalization will be a reoccurring expenditure every year, as we will increase by 1 meal to try and increase those steps on that teacher equalization scale. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between fund balance and cash. So fund balance is the total accumulation of operating surpluses and deficits since the beginning of existence. So it does not translate straight into cash. Fund balance equals assets, what the district owns, minus liabilities, what the district owes. It is not, like I said, it's not the equivalent of cash on hand, and it can't be used for any purpose. Fund balance consists of cash, cash equivalents, and non-cash components, such as your short-term and long-term receivables and payables. So in fund balance, and I'll tell you why I'm bringing this up here shortly, when we report on fund balance in our financial statements, there are 5 categories that you break fund balance. You've got a non-spendable category, which is your inventory or prepaid items. You have a restricted category, a committed category, an assigned category, and an unassigned category. The district currently has some non-spendable, which is some inventory and prepaid items, and then we have some assigned. Back last year, we assigned about $1.5 million to be used for the phone system and the Wi-Fi, and then what's remaining after the other categories is your unassigned fund balance. So talking about cash reserves, why is cash reserves very important and to keep our cash where we are? If you know, it hasn't been that long, we have, well, the past, at least last year, we did not have to do a TAN, and we are at a really good place where we don't have to do a TAN, and that's why, and it's because we have such a good fund balance situation. It's important to remember that cash fluctuates with time. Your fund balance is measured on June 30, and it's a snapshot of a picture of your net position at that point in time. Your cash is going to fluctuate every month. So a lot of our cash flow in July through, I'd say September, we don't really get a whole lot of money. July is probably our lowest money for the new year. We start receiving tax revenues or the bulk of our tax revenues in January and February, and we don't really start receiving any state revenues until about October. So our cash, whatever we have on hand in June, has to get us through pretty much the entire fall to meet payroll needs and operating costs each month. Having these financial reserves, it boosts our credit rating, which is great for when we have to have borrowing needs. I had, I think, several calls, I know at least 2 or 3 last year from different credit rating agencies who bumped our rating because our fund balance was, had gotten so high. So fund balance, you can't really see this, but I kind of want to talk about this, and this is kind of why I showed those categories. So we have about $15 million in the fund balance, and that was as of June 30th, 2022. But not all of that is unassigned. We assigned $1.5 million for those capital projects, and then we had about $17,000 in non-spendable. So when you take away that, you only have about $13 million, 13.6, and that translates to about what would have been 32%, only 25%. And so with that, what's going to happen with 22-23, and you'll see I didn't put any estimates on where we are with fund balance for 22-23, and then our current budget for 23-24 did not add any fund balance. I'm just leaving it as 0, just kind of say worst case scenario, we stayed where we were. That $134,000 is going to decrease that fund balance, and while that's not a lot, year after year after year, it's going to keep taking away. So I'm just going to point that out. All right, another thing, real quick, the millage impact on the taxpayer. You really can't see this. One thing that I want to point out that a lot of people get confused about is primary residence homeowners, they are not subject to operational taxes. They do not pay operational taxes on your home. You only pay operational taxes if you are a secondary homeowner, you pay operational taxes on vehicles, and you pay it on business property. So this right here kind of gives you an idea based on the value of your property. If you raised one mil, what that would look like to a 4% taxpayer and a 6% taxpayer. And do y'all have any questions on teacher equalization? And the reason why we brought that up is Mr. Cawthorn and I had a conversation. We are nearing toward where in September we will have to sign our millage certification for the county, and we just kind of wanted to bring this back to your attention for some discussion.
And I wanted Lacey to talk about fund balance, because, you know, as I'm learning, you know, I learn something new every day. When you first hear $15 million fund balance, you think, woo-woo, we're rolling. And then, you know, when you really dig down to it, I mean, I'll be honest, I thought it sounded like we had $15 million in the bank. That's not what that means. I mean, I just want to make sure we're all clear. I mean, that's a healthy financial position, but when you're looking at cash on hand, it is not $15 million. That is our total assets minus our total liability. So it's not $15 million sitting in the bank. I just want to make sure we're all clear on that, because if we do, because this teacher equalization, we have to keep doing this to compete with Spartanburg County. We've committed to this. Y'all committed to this before I got here, and it's something we have to do to compete with the other districts. And really, it's not the other districts in Spartanburg. We're competing with Greenville and the other counties, and we are in competition. Dr. B just said amen, as she's our human resource person. We're going after every teacher. Dr. B and I are going to take the road show this fall, and we're going to go recruit teachers, because that's the name of the game. We have to put the best teachers in front of our students to give our students the best shot. So I just wanted us all to be on the same page as we look to next month making a decision of how we're going to fund the teacher equalization. It's not if we, it's how we. And I know we can either continue to look at taking it out of the fund balance, but I just wanted you to be aware of what that meant, or, you know, look at assigning the millage, and that's what I believe most of the other districts are doing, assigning the millage. Is that correct, Lacey? I believe that most of them are.
In 22-23, districts 3, 4, and 5 went ahead and assigned millage, and they will continue that this year. I'm not quite sure where districts 2 and 2, 6, and 7 stand just quite yet, but they're talking about. I think District 2 is going to assign the millage this year for sure.
Lacey, can I request just a copy of the last page that you had in your presentation? Can I get a copy of that? Thank you.
I'll actually, if I'll just share this presentation with you, if that works after the.
I would like to make just a comment that in the initial discussion on this equalization, and you know, the 7 districts agreed to assign that millage. No one wanted to commit. It's like using your savings account to pay your bills. You're going to run out of money. And after the effort to put forth by this administration to build the fund balance back to its proper levels, and the staff here, it's not the smartest, wisest financial decision to start to keep digging that hole. You're going to lose it. You need to assign that millage, and I would, otherwise it's a cumulative process. It builds every year, so we can prepare for it, and I'd advise keeping the hand out of the kitty for that fund balance at the time, and save it for what it is meant for, a rainy day fund, not unsustainable flow of cash for our teacher increases to take us to the next level for years of service and raises, and to be competitive, like Dr. Smith mentioned, that we need to maintain that what little competitive advantage we have against Greenville and Cherokee and those who are paying bonuses and doing a lot more. So.
Correct.
Yeah, and the thing to keep in mind is the main competitor is Greenville, and while this is a plan, Greenville's up in their game too. It's a constant catch up. So I do think it's wise to assign recurring funds to recurring expenses. Ms. Brady, a question for you. Would it help, and I'm thinking about financial policies and just guidelines, would it help you and future boards for us to set not necessarily a basement, but just a suggested percentage as I wrote it down, unrestricted percentage as of expenses? Would that help you?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So that might be something that we want to consider along with this.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that is that would help give you some guidance, and you don't always feel like you're trying to hit a moving target.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's actually an auditor recommendation as well, so.
Okay, okay, good deal. Okay, Mr. Rollins?
Sure, absolutely. Okay.
The system we put in to help better with bookkeeping, is it up and running and doing okay?
We are working on it.
So I
We
can
are
tell 'em-
having loads of fun.
So I can tell them we're working on it.
Yeah, so, long-term, it's gonna be great. Right now, I'm gonna be honest with you, it's just been crazy. We've been working day in and day out to get things, fixed, to get situated. We've had to, I will say what ended up happening in April, right after spring break, they changed our implementation consultant on us. And that was a huge hurt for us. And so we are crossing the finish line, but we are pulling across the finish line. Like I said, we are running into some issues, but we're working through them. You know, there's been a couple of things. I know I'm about at my grace limit with people, and so we are trying really hard to get that stuff fixed, and we're working through the problems. And I can't promise, you know, anything for the future, but I really do. I think long term it's going to be great. Like I said, we've just got to work on a few things. I will say this, and this doesn't justify or, you know, try to make amends for the, you know, some of the inconvenience that this has caused. But the company that we purchased the software from, they are working in the background to do some updates, okay? And when they are doing that, it's messing with everything that we're doing. So just about every single day, we have some sort of other error that we're having to work through. So we'll get there. We are working. So yes, it is good. Yes, it will be good. It is we are going through a big transition period, and everybody is exhausted. And
Do you think they'll get that check on Wednesday?
yeah, yes. So what happened with that? So I'll just be honest. We could have processed those checks today. We could have printed them, but we chose not to do that, and here's why. Most people
Lacey, tell them what you're talking about with the
teacher supply check.
teacher supply check from the state.
Yeah, from the state. So we started in our old system, we had a magic button that we could press. So, and that magic button generated everything, and it did everything, and it just made everything flow so smoothly, and we do not have that magic button in the new software. So we had to work with them to try to find a workaround, and we found a workaround, so we shouldn't have this problem next year as far as the magic button's concerned. But the issue that we're having is the direct deposit piece.
Yes.
And so what was happening is we got to a point where we could print the checks, but we couldn't direct deposit. And we didn't want to print them, because what that means is if we can't print these checks, then that means we can't print any reimbursement checks to employees, and we don't want to go there. So we are working with them. We have actually, first thing in the morning, they had some things they had to do in the background for us this afternoon, this evening, and we're going to work with them. So we will get them processed, and they will see those checks on Wednesday.
Thank you.
I want to thank Lacey and her team. They have worked tirelessly this summer. This is a major overhaul, and we do finally get Tyler fully implemented with our financial software. We're going to have so many more accountable measures in place and controls, and that's the name of the game. We want to be good stewards of the taxpayer money. We want to be able to give ultimate accountability and oversight to everything. But I thank you, Lacey, and your team. It's been a challenge, but she smiles. I think she's fake smiling, but she smiles every day when I talk to her. But I do thank you, and you're all doing a great job. And thank you for that question, Ms. Rogers.
They'll get it, I promise.
But see, I've seen them go through changing a system when I work, you know, not at school and at school here. But sometimes it doesn't go exactly like that.
Oh, no, it doesn't, but we are doing better, I promise.
Thank you, Lacey.
Okay.
If I could, Ms. Brady, just great job on explaining the fund balance and making all the accounting principles simple. Appreciate that.
Try.
I tend to agree that we have made a decision to partner with and stay in lockstep with the rest of the counties in Spartanburg. We can't continue to spend money without having the income coming in. That's an imbalance in the budget. So When do you have to have a recommendation on the millage?
September.
So in the September meeting?
It'll be in the September meeting, yeah. This
I
is
mean-
just to get everybody ready so that you can ask questions and talk with Lacey or I this month, but it will be on the agenda next month for sure.
Okay.
Right, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Maybe we could also show the history of no millage increases in Spartanburg District One, just to make yourself feel a little better that. But this is, if we don't do it, then we're going to break rank with the rest of the Spartanburg County districts, and we don't want to, we need to be in harmony with all the districts in Spartanburg.
We're gonna do it one way or the other. We have to do it. We're bound to do it. It's just whether it's gonna be a millage increase or continue to take it out of the fund balance. But, no, we have to, because we have to compensate our teachers and keep that competitive advantage.
Well, we can technically assign current millage, right?
You could, so how that works is, so what would happen for this year instance is you would, it's basically kind of the same thing. You reassign it from your operations, so you're still taking it from your operations, but you're not writing a check. So you can reassign the millage, but it's kind of the same.
But
Same
without
concept.
raising a total millage, you can assign your 2 mills, 4 mills, whatever we're responsible for out of our current millage.
Correct.
Capacity.
Correct.
Rate, okay.
And I need you just to clarify one thing. I'm under the understanding that nobody in District One got a percentage increase. It was just steps and what the state gave us. Nobody got a percentage this time.
So all teachers received a
Oh,
step increase and a $2,500. Bus drivers received a step increase and an average 15% increase, because we have to raise our bus driver pay based on the the state's bus driver scale. Everybody else received anywhere from 1.5% to 2%. So yes, you are correct that everybody else, the percentage there was about anywhere from 1.5% to 2% increase.
Got a step increase and that from the state.
Correct. Difference is the state funded, about 75% of that increase. Okay. And then the other thing that's on the agenda, you should have saw it in your packet. Administration is recommending that Spartanburg School District 1, the Board of Trustees would approve the issuance and sale of general obligation bonds not to exceed $6,750,000. And these funds provide the debt service payments for interest and principal in the fall and the spring, as well as provide the capital improvement funding for the 23-24 school year. And this is what we do every single year in the fall.
Okay. We've heard the recommendation to approve the SCAGO GEO bond resolution for $6.75 million. Do I hear a motion?
Make a motion to approve the bond resolution.
Motion by Mr. Sloan, a second by Ms. Rogers. Any discussion in the matter? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Ms. Brady, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have our operations report. First up there is Mr. Jason McGraw.
I don't know what that is.
That's a new one. We've never had
I
intro.
didn't
ready
know
to go.
Jason came in with
If
walk-up
the Lord's
music.
coming, I'm ready to go.
That sounded like angels in the background.
I promise that. No, I didn't. Mr. Atkins, did you do that?
That was worth the price of admission right there.
Well, good evening, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Smith, members of the board. Just wanted to give you a quick update on some items that fall under my realm of leadership. The first thing I want to talk about is the facilities and demographic study that we've talked about now for months. Just want to kind of give you a timeline of where we've been and where we currently are. All site visits were completed on May the 10th. So back in the spring, all the site visits for every school, including the district office, they were completed. went the month of June and didn't hear anything. July 11th, I sent an email, hey, guys, can I get an update? Didn't hear anything for another week and a half, so on July 19th, I sent another email for an update, and finally on the 20th, I got an update just giving me some information like they needed about 4 to 6 more weeks to estimate the cost of repairing the deficiencies. Is that all I need to say?
I think you should have chosen different walk-up music, Mr. McCraw.
I was just preparing my future path, I guess. But so 6 more weeks to determine the cost estimates for the deficiencies. And then hopefully by the end of this month, we would have the demographic study information prepared. So that led me to a phone conference with McMillan, Pasden, and Smith on the 25th of July. And we've kind of went through just some conversations about how we wanted this information presented to you all, as well as to our district and to the community. And their suggestion of how they've done it other places is to have a leadership team, which consists mostly of the chairman, the superintendent, and the administration here at the district office, where they would share a lot of information and we go through it together, so that we don't get blindsided here with anything right off the get-go. And then we would have board presentations where the full board would be involved in that. So we've kind of went through some things and just real brief discussions. At that point, on the 25th of July, I did not have these reports. So I received these reports on August the 1st. And on August the 1st, they also sent a chart that basically tells us, and I'll just show it to you, won't pass it out, but just kind of tells you where we're at. Obviously, red is trouble. Green and blue and yellow are pretty good. All this is not red, okay? So that's the good news. All 1,800 pages are not red. But obviously there are some components that are critical, and basically by critical they mean that they need to be replaced or repaired within 2 years. Obviously some of them on there, as I've gone through this book, have already been fixed because they're things that we've noticed since the May 10th, and we've already addressed those issues. But a couple things just to kind of give you an idea. I also have a phone conference later this week with MPS to see where we are, but here's what we're looking at. Late August, we're going to have the leadership review meeting number 1. Early September, we hope to have a board work session to kind of wrap our brains around just the overview, the condition assessment summary that they will give us. We won't go through page by page, but they'll point out the critical and the ones that are urgent as well. Mid-September, we'll have another review with the leadership team to kind of go over where we are with everything. And then late September, early October, we will have the second board work session to where we talk about the cost, the estimates, the demographic forecasting, and all that information. And then probably early October to mid-October, they're going to issue a summary to the operations department and to the board as to what they see us looking at over the next 5 years in regards to our capital improvement plan. That's kind of the area that we go. And then once they issue that summary to all of us, then we will decide how we prioritize as a district leadership, as well as the input from the school board as to where we go in regards to that. Pretty, and just, I want y'all to understand it, I did it for a little bit of fun, because y'all know me, I'm not very funny. But this is very comprehensive. And I'm talking about from a chipped tile that's been at Landrum High School behind a fire door for 10 years that I've been here. I mean, it's just a small chipped tile. And if you didn't open that door often or didn't look, you would never notice it. Half of the parents back here from Landrum High School don't even know it's there. I promise, but they caught it. That's what we wanted them to do. I mean, that's why we paid them to do this. So everything's not urgent and critical, and the walls are not falling down, okay? The things that are urgent, we have already began. Like I said earlier, we've already fixed some of those things, and we will continue to do so. But we need this report before y'all as well as the leadership of the school district and the administration, so we can get this thing moving. Because that's what we want to do. We want to leave it better than we found it. And some of us have been here for a number of years. Some of us have been here for a lot of years. Some of us are just coming, but we all have the same vision, and that's to make this place the best place it can be. And we've got an opportunity to do that with this facilities and demographic study. You know, we've got over 2,000 students riding a school bus. Never, ever have we been remotely close, I feel like. So it's kind of, our district is growing. We have over 5,500 students enrolled today in District 1. So we've got to do a lot of work, and we have been doing a lot of work, but we can't slow down. This is important. So number one, thank you for let's getting this done. And then over the next several months, I will be coming to you with more asks of how we can improve and fix all of these things, okay? Second thing I wanted to do, we asked to give an update on our operations site that we purchased back here behind the bus, activity bus parking. Truthfully, it's been slow moving. Obviously, we've moved things into that space, some storage space, a lot of things that have come that we cannot put on there in that warehouse. I told y'all that when I presented this months ago. That is an old gym with a wooden floor. It's not a concrete floor. So a lot of the heavy things we've moved to the red barn, if you want to call it, to store. We also have been able, which has been a huge blessing, to get some of our grounds equipment out of the weather, and it's also kind of provided us a place to work. We've updated the lights. Obviously, there's some improvements that we've made there, but we have a little bit of ways to go. Our next step, and Miss Brady did a very good job. She has worked her tail off to make this financial system and transition work well. And I promise I have been probably the person she likes to see the least coming. Because if you can't spend money, there's not a lot you can do in my world. But she's been great. And we've worked together. We've piecemealed it, what's urgent, what's got to get done first. So we've been able to do some things, but like some warehouse shelving and some things that we need down there to really utilize that space. We haven't done that yet because it wasn't top priority. But that's what's going to happen as we move forward now, and some of those capital expenditures will take place. Once we get that shelving down there, we'll be able to move some more items out of the warehouse and the basement, as well as hopefully get rid of a self-storage unit that we're having to rent in Campobello because it has a concrete floor. It can hold the weight. We don't have to worry about it. So that's our plan. I remember months ago, someone had several board members ask me about the second building that we purchased. If y'all remember, in that purchase, we purchased a second building that is not erected yet. We have that building on campus. Again, we're trying to be smart. Slow and steady wins the race. I really believe that. And so with that's our plan. What we want to do is we want to get that property laid out that's going to best suit our needs, where we have to house grounds equipment or we need to build whatever it may be. So we're working on getting that piece of property laid out properly, and then we will obviously have some grading and some tree work to do before we can erect that second building. But we have it here, and then we will probably put out RFQs, RFPs or RFBs, whichever one you want to pick, quote, bid, or proposal, to get that building erected. Because with a limited number of maintenance and ground staff was something we're not going to be able to do. We thought we might possibly could, but once getting that thing in here, we're going to have to put that out. And that's fine. We have the capital. We have some flexibility. You guys provided the flexibility in the capital budget to be able to do so. So we will do that. So we're moving, but it's slow moving. But know that we are moving. Second thing, the slow moving, much slower than myself or Dr. Smith or Dr. Brown specifically, is the gym floor at Mabry. Remember the gym floor at Mabry? I gave them permission to start on that gym floor. When I say them, the person that won the bid for that renovation, I gave them permission to begin on May the 25th. It's August the 14th, and we have the foam and the plywood subfloor down, but we have not yet received the actual synthetic surface. And it's been a struggle. But it's hard to say when you don't have people to do the work, and the supply shortage that we are still experiencing from COVID now in 2023. I'm doing the best I can. I promise you, I'm hounding them every day. I think they have blocked my email and my phone number, but I'm going to continue to do so. So we are looking to do that. Mabry has moved volleyball tryouts and anything in regards to volleyball to Inman Intermediate, which used to be the middle school anyway. So we have that smooth transition. Dr. Brown and Ms. Bush have done a great job working that out, but I did want to update you on that. And I'm almost finished. Just wanted to give you an update. You guys were very generous in the capital plan for 23-24. We presented it months ago with Ms. Brady's budget, and you guys approved it. But just want to check off some things that we've done already. So we've refinished the gym floors at both high schools and Landrum Middle. Those are the wooden gym floors, so we've refinished those. The bus and school radios for the transportation safety department, those have been ordered. And when you order from a large group like Motorola, you expect them the next day, 20 weeks out. So everybody is still experiencing that supply shortage. So we have that. We've got new fencing or gates at Chapman, Inman Elementary, Inman Intermediate, Mabry Middle, New Prospect. We have lightning detection and weather systems are up and running. Officer Harmon's going to speak to you about that next. We've ordered a new yellow activity bus. And just so you know, today we had to put, we swapped out one of the state-owned yellow school buses that had no air working. And we put them in one of our district-owned yellow buses for air. We don't have enough of that to happen on each and every case, but we try to take care of our people as best we can. Today was hot. It was really, really hot. So we've purchased another yellow activity bus. It should be here in the next few weeks. We've purchased some convertible cafeteria tables for Campobella Grambling School because they use their cafeteria for a performance venue, as some of you have been to programs there in the past. We've ordered new cafeteria tables and chairs for New Prospect, as they created an additional dining space to alleviate some of the time constraints there. The floor joist repair that I told you all about, as part of the facility study, they recognized there was a floor joist issue under the cooler at New Prospect in the cafeteria. We've got that fixed. And then we're about 85% complete on the football locker room renovations at both high schools, where we took the locker room or the locker doors off, installed lock boxes for valuables, putting shoulder pad racks on top. This is going to help with safety and sanitation as well. So we've been able to do a lot, and we'll do even more once we get this financial software moving smoothly. And like I said, that's not Ms. Brady's fault. She's been a tremendous asset and help to all of us as we try to spend money appropriately. Any questions? I won't be talking about this, so Mr. Holden, Ms. Ross, you won't have to deal with me for that length of time. Y'all have a great night.
Thank you, Mr. McGraw. Next, we have Officer Harmon to give us a report on safety standards and changes for 2023-24.
Thank you guys for allowing me to speak to you. And I will keep this brief, but we do have some significant changes for 23-24 school year. Some of these initiatives are putting us in a very proactive place. First, I do want to talk about the Perry weather stations / warning systems. And I know Dr. Smith is chomping at the bit to add to whatever I say about this, so I'll keep it brief so he can add to it because I know he wants to. This gives us the ability to have our lightning detection system taken out of the hands of our athletic trainers who may be working with an athlete who's on the ground, hurt, or looking for injuries that have occurred on the ball field. Those things are totally automated. The siren, the lights, they all go off. Dr. Smith's very familiar with these devices from Norman, so those are on all our facilities. They have been installed, and they are working properly, and we've had a lot of testing of that over the last couple of days, as you guys have known. Phones have been blowing up all over the district, principals, assistant principals, but those things do more than just lightning detection. They also do the wet bulb levels, wind speed, wind gust. They also provide us an external public announcement system. Not just for weather, but we could use that public address system for active shooter on campus. Talks to text. You just text it, active shooter on campus, put it on a number of repeats you want it. You can repeat it 100 times if you want to. Active shooter on campus over and over again, and we'll keep sending that signal out over and over again. So we told our transportation people, our bus folks, if you see that light going, be wary, start contacting people, just don't drop kids off, keep going. So all this is all working together very well. You want to add to that, Dr. Smith?
Safety is incredibly important to me, and you know, I was at Landrum and I saw Coach Gentry one day when I first got here. We were at a ball game, so one of those purple clouds roll up, and I saw him looking at his phone. I said, "Mike, what you doing?" He said, "I'm checking to see if there's lightning in the area." I just assumed we had lightning detection systems, and when he told me we did not, I knew that was going to be one of the first things we did, because I'll never forget years ago, you know, when that child from Oak Brook was killed on the soccer field. And, you know, we just owe it to our students and our staff to have state-of-the-art lightning detection equipment to make sure there's no doubt about it. And Perry works, because my phone has been blowing up since, when they installed it, Jeff? Last Thursday?
They started the install as early as Tuesday. This past Tuesday.
And what I love most is it takes out of the hands of athletic director, trainer, and principal, because when everybody hears that sound, we clearing it. And, you know, there's just no fussing about it, because we're going to put kids and staff safety first.
Yes.
Thanks for your work on that, Jeff.
And it's not just about football games. It's about playground time. You know, playground time is, you know, teachers are getting their break underneath the shade and the kids are getting out that energy. Who's monitoring the lightning? Who's monitoring the heat index of 104 today at some of our locations? No one. But now we do have something that will monitor that for us, and those period weather stations and warning systems are going to provide that little bit of ease of assurance that we know that we're not going to put children in a bad spot, whether it's on a football game on Friday night or it's on the playground with a 104 index. So that's going to be a really great thing for us. And we're still refining a lot of the warnings and those kind of things. And the principals are doing a good job with learning that system, and it's very user-friendly. So just want to let you know about that. Another proactive stance that the district has taken, District 1 is now a clear bag district that is following suit with other districts in the county and Greenville County School Board, School Association, and Cherokee County. They're all clear bag. If you look at the visitor opponents for Chapman High School, all of them are clear bag but one. So that's just following suit, but it's also very proactive. We're not waiting on an event to happen, an incident to happen at one of our events and say, oh, now we got to go to clear bag. We're trying to be very proactive in that stance. We also have another requirement of unaccompanied minors, 8th grade and below will need to be accompanied by an adult. We've had some discipline issues, some minor incidents with some of the middle school folks at some of the ball games where they've been dropped off. I don't know if people are assuming that that's another child care service and that their principal is there. Sometimes their principal is there, sometimes it's not, but the high school principals have to take on that role, and they applauded when Dr. Smith said that we were going to go to that. So that's another proactive measure. We don't want to wait until a serious incident occurs with a minor at a ball game. We're having to cancel the entire ball game because we're having to airlift a child out. I know Dr. Smith said he come close to that actual event happening at Dorman. So that's another proactive step that we're taking. And I mentioned this the last time I spoke to you guys about Stop It. It is our anonymous tip line. It's also a reporting system. It's also a community resource directory. It's a lot of things for our students. It's a lot of things for the students and the faculty in our schools to say, this is another avenue to get information from you. What's going on with your fellow classmates? What's going on with you? That system is fully online, fully operational. And we'll say that we took the first proactive step of getting that in Swarthmore County School, and we have another school district that's coming on board with it as well for their school year. So that's another proactive step that we're taking to make sure we stand on the forefront and being very proactive instead of reactive in a lot of things that we do. The last thing I just want to mention is that your operations department, technology, transportation, safety office, facility maintenance, we all work together. We're talking constantly about what are the things we need to do to keep faculty and students safe, and we're committed to that goal. Any questions? I'd be happy to take them.
I have a quick question about the Stop It program that you're talking about.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that for students only, students, teachers, students, staff, teachers? And is it like
Students.
where they notice something, they have the ability
Yes.
to text? So
Yes, third grade and up.
Okay.
There's a couple approaches, and we're letting the principals kind of spearhead their approach because they know their student body best. What is the best way to do it? Just have signs up, and for the older kids who have cell phones, they can just download the app, or they can just go to it from online, find the school, alphabetical listing, enter whatever they need to enter. There's questions that are standard with Stop It, but then there's extra questions you could ask for your population. I was talking to a new prospect principal the other day, was talking about, it's like, I'd like to have this question asked of my students if they select my school. I said, you're the admin, you can do that. Specific questions for them. But primarily it is for the students only. If faculty are having issues, we would hope that the faculty would feel comfortable enough to go to the principal, assistant principal, SRO. And people think a lot of times, oh, we've got to do that because people don't talk. That's not the case. We are a small school district. We have people, community folks calling us, talking to us, neighbors calling. That's how we find a lot of our tips. This is just another way to give students another option who may feel like they're disenfranchised, they're isolated. Well, maybe I can go to this group. And then it could spearhead more counseling because they do have online counseling.
It's another layer of safety, and it's 24 hours a day.
24 hours a day. At 2 o'clock in the morning, we have a student that feels like, I need to talk to somebody right now. They can go to Stop It. They can type in their school, or they can just say, I want to chat with somebody right now. And they can chat with them totally anonymous. So it's another element to let them know there is someone to talk to.
And I want to say there's nothing right now more important than our students' mental health.
Yep.
Nothing. And this is one way where we're serving them at night when nobody might not be around. I absolutely believe this could help save one of our children one night. Because we have, and it goes right to an administrator, right, Jeff? And then you're the catch-all, so that we don't miss any kind of notification.
Yeah, and it's the same services that our guidance counselors have been putting up for years, the suicide hotlines and crisis tip lines and all those things. It's just put in one location for us, and then when the student goes there and says they want to leave a tip or want to tell somebody they're having some issues, it will go to those administrators, it will go to myself, it'll go to Mr. McCraw, Dr. Mathis. We are going to be those checks behind the scenes. We can make sure there's follow-up, and then we can assign those district staff who are our mental health counselors to those students to do that follow-up support. If they identify themselves, remember it is anonymous, so they can totally say, I want to keep this all anonymous, or they can say after they've had a time talking to the counselor, I thought I want to be anonymous, but I'm going to put my name in here now. And then that opens it up too for us to do those reporting. So there is that safety net where no one's going to say, well, the school didn't do something for my student. That's not going to be the case. I'll be watching it, and several others at the district level will be watching it to make sure and to assure that that's followed up. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Officer Harmon. That is the last item on our agenda, and I just want to take just a second, just probably 30 seconds to thank the room. I see some faces that I recognize. I see some that I don't. I see some that I haven't seen in years. And I just want to say I appreciate that. Many times we'll agree on things. Sometimes we disagree on things. But the fact that you're here, that you're engaged, we've got community members, we've got staff members. And I want to say I appreciate it. I think the whole board appreciates it. Together we are better. And part of how we make sure we're on that path to continuous improvement is we listen. And we all have our opinions, and as long as we stay respectful, I think we're all on the right path. So just thank you for being here. It's refreshing to see a full room and people that care. So thank you. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor, say aye. We stand adjourned.